Hey, back again guys, taking advantage of this natural light. So I wanted to expand upon one of my previous videos because again I'm starting to get more and more revelations as this day goes on. So I haven't really thought of a title yet, but I was thinking about calling it something along the lines of why men and women, or why men will never be ultimately free unless you learn how to control these two things. And I guess I'm going to start this off by saying that I was initially wrong. You see, if you look at a lot of my content on this channel, it's all about how to tame the mind, how to take care of this internal monologue inside of you. And usually that is the root of all your depression, or your anxiety, or your mental health. And it's a little, there are some further steps. That is one part of the puzzle. And the other part of the puzzle is your feelings. So what I'm going to preface by saying is that you are actually not your thoughts, but you are not your feelings either. And this is where I made the fundamental mistake, and where a lot of people are making the mistake. Because you can meditate, you can fast all you want, and realize that you are not your mind, that you are not this internal dialogue that constantly belittles you and crops up in the worst case scenarios, knocking your confidence and not being conducive to you as a self-assured human being. But I'm so glad I caught myself, because I was going down this line of once saying that and saying the solution is to trust your feelings, trust your emotions, and that is wrong, that is bollocks, it's not true whatsoever. You are not your thoughts, but you are not your feelings or emotions either. And that's very difficult to hear, and you're going to hear a lot of people online telling you all this stuff about you should follow your dreams and just follow your heart and do whatever you feel like. And it's a dangerous way to live. And I guess the truth I'm kind of coming to now, and what I'm going to leave you with this moment, is you are not your mind, you are not your thoughts, you are not your feelings or emotions, but if you are one thing, you are more your intuition than anything. And that's not something that's palpable, that you can real, that's tangibly based in reality. And it's something completely different and separate from feelings and emotions, because like negative thinking, feelings and emotions are programmed from birth. So I'm going to kind of walk you through how you're going to be able to master yourselves and break free from this facade in front of you by going through the mental freedom and then emotional freedom. So if you are someone who is privy to these negative thoughts, who's always harboring this idea of themselves in a negative light, then the step I would encourage you to look into is Zen Buddhism. Eastern philosophy and spirituality will show you how to get present into the moment, and then you'll start to realize that there is a separation between the present moment now and you as the thinker. You know, when you're maybe sitting down and your thoughts are somewhere else, you are somewhere else because you're not here, you're not in the moment right in front of you. And some people still can't understand that concept, and that's because social media, phones, they're so pervasive in society now. They're taking you out of the moment and putting you somewhere else. Even people watching this video now, you might be looking at me, but you're somewhere else. You're not here. You can't feel your body from the inside. And that's what's so pervasive in society now, is we can't separate ourselves from the thinker and the self, the present moment. So I'm going to invite you, if that is something you're struggling with, and it is the first and biggest obstacle you're going to have to conquer if you are going to free yourself, is you need to realize that you aren't your thoughts. So Zen Buddhism, Taoism, meditation practices are really going to be resourceful for you if you want to free yourself from the idea of your thoughts, but also all these mental conditions, depression, anxiety, stress, overthinking, and also your own self-limiting ideas. Because if you can't think greater than the thoughts in your head, then that's all you'll ever amount to. Now, the problem I was having is that my story ended there. It doesn't end there, because if you come up with that narrative, most people are now perpetuating that you are your feelings and emotions, and this is a lie. You are not your feelings and emotions either. You need to understand that the body is like a spacesuit. My mentor Ram Dass explained this quite beautifully, but the more you live in your spacesuit, the more you can't differentiate, that's a hard word to say, differ from the suit you're wearing you and the suit you're wearing, you think you are your suit, you think you are your spacesuit, and in that spacesuit is your feelings and emotions. What's really difficult in today's society is that, because again, we're delving into politics, but let's just say we're a more tolerant society. You have to respect people's feelings and emotions, but you need to remember that feelings and emotions are subjective. They're only relevant to your own personal interpretation, and there is no blanket consistency of what is consistent with an emotion that is justified in anger or sadness or guilt. It's all subjective, and that's why it's so important you realize that you're not that. And this all stems from your childhood. This all stems from the programming of your mother and father. I'll give you an example. So if you were, let's say, shamed when you were young for touching your private parts, you'll always have that emotional reaction embedded into your very bones, into your very DNA, into your very spacesuit, if you were, that makes you react in a certain way when you want to be sexual, or you want to be sexual with an individual. You'll come across that guilt again, and it might be something that if you're interacting in some kind of sexual way with someone and they say something that is similar or brings up that emotion inside of you that is predicated on that initial childhood experience, then that is how you're going to react if you think you are your emotions. You see, this is very, very difficult. So the solution is, my friends, is you need to understand, I'm just being wary of time because I want to be respectful, but the way to overcome this is you can only start to conquer your lower self, your emotional self, your feelings, once you have mastered the internal dialogue, because this is where your mind is going to be so resourceful for you, because you need to use, your mind is just a tool. You need to remember that. Once you realize you aren't your thoughts, you need to use this tool to think rationally when your emotional self is acting irrationally. So I'll give you an example. If you are maybe talking to a colleague at work and she says something that provokes in you physical sensations that are indicative of anger, that you recognize as anger, it might be clenching of the fist, your jaw gets tight, your neck gets hot and you get sweaty, you feel that emotion, and that emotion you have put subjectivity on it to call it anger. If you don't recognize you are your emotions, that anger will overwhelm you. You'll take over. You'll go offline. You're unconscious. You're not there anymore. And that's what I mean similarly to the thoughts. You're not there when that emotion has taken over you. Your body has taken over you. Instead of your mind taken away, now it's your body acting reactivity, impulsivity, and it's not good. So I'm ranting here. I'm getting really passionate about this. But what we need to do in that moment, once we know how to get present, once we have cultured the idea of meditation and becoming present in the moment and recognizing, being the observer of our emotions as well. So again, the most appropriate way to reaction in that particular example is I'm noticing the physical sensations that are indicative of anger, or someone could interpret as anger. And I see that arise in me, but then I use my mind, and this is where it's so beautiful, you guys, because you can then use your mind, because the mind, you have to understand, the mind is a time traveling device. It can look into the future or into the past. In this instant, we can look into the future and say, what reaction would I like to make here that is going to be conducive to me making my best self, my future self, actualized in this moment? So again, this is going to depend on what she says to you, but if she says something really horrible, like something anti-Semitic, you might decide, you know what, my character, the person I want to be in the future, does not tolerate anti-Semitism, and I'm going to let this anger kind of be justified because that's not on. Conversely, if it was something maybe a little bit more playful, a little bit more like banter, you could then decide, you know what, the character I want to be in the future is quite light-hearted. He wants to play. He can see sarcasm as just a cool way to connect, and that's how I'm going to ride it out. So hopefully now, guys, you're starting to piece together how you are not your thoughts and you are not your emotions. Conquering the emotions is so difficult because, again, it's so personal. Feelings and emotions are so, you're treading on eggshells, especially in this culture now, and you have to recognize that you need to create that distance the same way you did when you meditated. and you need to realize that you need to realize those feelings as a separate entity in yourself, and using the mind to act accordingly to actualize your best self. I think I'm gonna leave it there because we're on 10 minutes now, and hopefully I've dropped a couple gems in there that you can kind of latch onto. But I'm just gonna conclude now with, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to be free, if you want to be unbounded from the shackles, you first need to free your mind. Once you free your mind, remember, this is a tool. This is your time traveling device. This wetware is so powerful if you learn how to use it. Society doesn't tell us how to use it. Free the shackles first. Once you free the shackles, you can then use it to free yourself of your feelings and emotions, which are making you act impulsively, which are taking you out of presence, and which isn't in alignment with who the best person is, who the best person you want to embody is. So free your mind, then free yourselves of your emotions in your body as well, my friends. If you liked any of the content here, if you thought this was something you resonated with, like the video, subscribe. This channel is all about helping you think, feel, do, and be your very best. And with that, my friends, I'll see you for another meditation.